And tonight I'm going to read you a little bedtime story about how not to get Alzheimer's and how to reverse Alzheimer's, how to improve memory. Everybody should know about this book. Everybody. If you don't know about this book, it's important that you read it because it has groundbreaking information about how you can optimize your brain for the long term. And I just want to point out, this is a paper published in 2022, Precision Medicine Approach to Alzheimer's Disease, Successful Pilot Project. So this is 25 people with dementia or mild cognitive impairment treated with the end of Alzheimer's, the ReCode protocol. All of them, they had MoCA, Montreal Cognitive Assessment Scores. It's how doctors check to see if you might have cognitive problems. MoCA scores of 19 or higher. But what happened over a period of six months, let me look at see, how long was it? Oh gosh, 9 months. 9 months. Statistically significant improvement in MoCA scores, right? Also in Alzheimer's questionnaire scores, no adverse events. MRI showed improvement in their brain volume. And so this is really, really important. All right, so this is a little bedtime story. The end of Alzheimer's by Dr. Dale Bredesen. How do you do this? How do you do it? Can you do it at home? Do you need a doctor? Well, I'm going to go really quickly through the chapters just to give you an overview to see if you want to check it out, right? I mean, I know I have Alzheimer's in my family, and I want to make sure that I keep my brain. What happened to me, y'all, is I temporarily did lose my brain. For a while, I couldn't think straight. I was unable to remember things. And this was related to an exposure to some toxic mold. And it was not until, I did a lot of things to feel better. I got out of conventional medicine looking for an answer. I went into functional medicine. Functional medicine helped me. So this is basically how do you treat neurodegenerative problems with functional medicine? All right. So once upon a time, there was a problem that affected everybody in the world, right? Dementia is a big problem. If you don't know somebody yet, I'm sure you will know somebody who suffered from Alzheimer's or neurodegenerative disease. The problem is, of the drugs that they tried to make to help with Alzheimer's, they do not really reverse Alzheimer's. They slow decline, and 99.6 of the trials for Alzheimer's medications actually were a bust. So right now what we have will slow decline slightly. It does not increase your MoCA like what I just showed you, like that pilot study. And there's another study showing improvement and statistically significant improvement using the ReCode protocol. All right, so the first chapter, he talks about disrupting dementia. Basically, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And so basically saying that one drug wonder is not coming for Alzheimer's because Alzheimer's is multifactorial in terms of what's causing Alzheimer's. So in chapter 2, he talks about patient zero. Patient zero was the first person that he used this style of treatment with this personalized intervention who got better. Hot dog, right? This is not something you expect when you diagnose somebody with Alzheimer's. Pretty much, nobody likes to give that diagnosis, guys, right? And so, I know when I've been a provider, I think, I wonder what's going on with memory, but there's nothing I can really do for Alzheimer's, so I don't really want to even. Anyway, now there is something you can do. You've got to make that diagnosis of mild cognitive impairment and get them on a lifestyle program, y'all. So patient zero got better, right? Next chapter, chapter 3. How does it feel to come back from dementia? And this tells a story of a woman was only 40 years old when she started to have changes consistent with Alzheimer's. She had facial blindness, that is, she was looking at people's faces but didn't recognize them. Obviously, big brain fog. She didn't have as much of an interest in reading, and she'd been a big reader, and she could not recall what she read. Is this a problem for you? If it is, you got to read the book. Right. Well, you know, what happened? She starts to use this protocol and now significantly better at seeing people's faces. The 4 o'clock fatigue in the afternoon went away. Reading comprehension got better, recollection got better, word finding got better. So this is, you know, somebody telling their story of how they got better using this protocol. Now, how to give yourself Alzheimer's. All right, guys, this is no big surprise, but you can give yourself Alzheimer's if you do the right things in your life. Let me tell you a bedtime story about that. One big thing is not tending to what you eat nutritionally. We know that people with problems with their blood sugar, which can be from several different things. It can be from toxins. It can be from a life with lots and lots of processed foods and carbs. It can be from genetics. So a combination of things that in order to, but you will potentiate your risk of getting cognitive problems if you're eating crummy foods. Okay. So, one big part of this is learning to eat an anti-inflammatory diet. That's part of the ReCode protocol. All right. So, keeping your sugar high, unfortunately, that's one of the ways you could give yourself Alzheimer's. You could give yourself Alzheimer's by getting hit on the head a whole bunch of times, which is why I like telling my kid who got 3 concussions last semester on her skis. I feel so worried. I'm like, you got to take care of that noggin. So you can hit your head too much. High inflammation in the body increases your risk for Alzheimer's disease. Um, uh, Toxins can increase your risk for Alzheimer's disease. And believe it or not, you guys, this world is full of toxins. There's a lot of toxins. And we need to eat clean, breathe clean air, drink clean water. Okay. So that means basically we want to avoid processed foods, avoid sugar, right? That does not help our bodies. We want to make sure that we're drinking clean water. I think actually I'd go with the filtered water. And, you know, realize that what you're breathing in is very important. The other way that we can end up with Alzheimer's is if we have big irregularities in our hormones. We need to have balanced hormones for our body to work as great as it possibly can. So let's just see. Eliminating toxins, optimizing hormones and trophic factors. And so then the next section he goes in is deconstructing Alzheimer's, like basically how he figured out what are the things that needed to be addressed in a protocol if you were going to try and help reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. Basically, bench to bedside and back. So doing a lot of experimentation, looking at both in vitro and in people to try and figure out what's the best way. And the big thing here is I'm going to show you a little picture. All right, you see this? This right here. Whoop. That is APP. This is a little thing sticking out of your nerve cells, guys. And APP can get a haircut. It can get a good haircut and it can get a bad haircut. We want it to get the good haircut, nice haircut. We don't want a bad haircut because what happens when this little thing, this little protein sticking out of your neurons gets a bad haircut is that it gets an extra little particle that can go and become part of amyloid plaques. And that is correlated with Alzheimer's disease, right? The amyloid plaques. Now, what are the things that make it get a good haircut versus a bad haircut? Inflammation will give it a bad haircut. All right. Problems. Let me just look, see if I can find that list where he just goes through all the things. Okay, this is hilarious. If you wanted to find a drug that would make sure that you were always giving APP a good haircut, it would reduce the APP cleavage. It would change several of the places where that was being snipped, right? It would optimize the sex hormones, cortisol, optimize DHEA, optimize insulin secretion. It would reduce inflammation, increase resolvins, enhance detoxification, improve vascularization. It would increase cyclic AMP, increase glutathione. It would provide synaptic components so you have nice connections between all those nerves. It would optimize metals. It would increase GABA, increase vitamin D signaling. I'm just giving you a tiny taste. There's like a list of 150 of them, guys. That's why one drug does not work to reverse Alzheimer's. You hear me when I say this. If you are 40 or 50 and you're writing things down on Post-it notes because you're not remembering stuff, you need to read the book, okay? All right, so moving on in our bedtime story. I know this is so great. Well, there are genes too, all right. So there's genes that are affected in the next chapter, chapter 6, the God gene, and 3 types of Alzheimer's disease. Really, there's more than 3. Basically, you could take people with Alzheimer's and you can divide it up into subtypes. Some people who are the sweet type, right, too much sugar, the toxic type, too many toxins, the vascular, let's say they call that the cold type because they have vascular issues like not enough blood flow. People who've been hit on the head a whole bunch can lead to dementia. And people who have an imbalance of their hormones, so they don't have enough positive, we call that trophic input to their nerves and to the nerve connections. And so let's see. So he goes on and he talks about these different inputs and the different types of Alzheimer's disease, also looking at ApoE4 and ApoE4, and that is one of those genes that can lead to increased risk of Alzheimer's, late onset Alzheimer's. There are other genes as well, so you want your doctor to be looking at your genes, right? Then part 3, he goes through evaluation and personalized therapeutics. So this is where he kind of gets down to the nitty gritty of what does he call a cognoscopy, all right? A cognoscopy. It's a little more than just taking a brain test, okay? In fact, it's going through doing a brain test is a good idea. And I'm not even talking about an image or picture, although a picture is part of a full cognoscopy. But I really mean you need to see how the different parts of your brain are working, right? So how's your short-term memory? How's your recall? How's your arithmetic ability? And that's something, if you go to the Apollo Health site, that's where they have ReCode, you could get a free like brain test, right, online. So that's important. But then a doctor who does ReCode protocol is going to order a significant number of labs. All right. So let me just read you in your bedtime story. What kind of labs are we looking at? We want to know how your CRP is. That's something for inflammation. Homocysteine helps us understand about vitamin B12 and also inflammation and how some of the important cogs in the wheel are moving. Vitamin levels, C, D, E, B, B6, B12, folate, omega-6-3 ratio to make sure you got those healthy fats, right? We look at your albumin and globulin, the proteins in your blood, to make sure that they're optimized. How's your fasting insulin? How's your glucose? How's your hemoglobin A1C? What's your body mass index? We want to make sure that is optimized. Cholesterol, an advanced lipid panel is important, right? What's your glutathione level? We'll also be looking at what are the sex hormone levels to try and get you optimized, to try and make sure that, we identify if you have things like leaky gut or problems with your blood-brain barrier, which we can check by doing some very specific antibody testing. We also look at toxins, right? If your mercury level is high, golly gee, you need to do something about it. So mercury, lead, arsenic, cadmium, we want to look at your copper-zinc ratio, very important. And we want to make sure your metals are balanced, so you have the adequate amounts of the good metals, right? We also might be looking at some other toxins, such as mycotoxins in the urine, trying to see if you might have what we call inhalational Alzheimer's, which is related to exposure to toxic mold. And this is something that was starting to be my issue, is that I was exposed to toxic mold and I couldn't remember anything. It was terrible. Oh my gosh. We got to get your sleep going. So you must be sleeping well. So a sleep study, especially if you snore, we might be checking the microbiome, looking at your MRI of your brain with volumetrics, and sometimes using a MRI that shows where the activity is and where the blood flow is. So this is the basics there with what we test. And then chapter 8 is where he starts to talk about the ReCode protocol itself, right? Now, this is something that it's a whole lifestyle, okay? So when you're going to be starting to do the ReCode protocol, I suggest that you take it in sort of bite-sized chunks, right? And that would mean beginning with something like the nutritional piece, okay? And so within nutrition, he suggests something called Keto Flex 12-3. And that is basically a whole food ketogenic diet. So basically, we're cutting out sugar, we're cutting out grains, we're eating a lot of good, colorful vegetables, we're eating colorful fruits during a short eating window, and during the day. So that you have time that your body's going to make ketone bodies that will help soothe the brain and reduce inflammation in the body. So Keto Flex, the 12-3 means at least 12 hours fasting overnight and 3 hours after eating in the evenings before you go to bed. All right, so that's the Keto Flex 12-3. So you might want to start with just the nutritional piece of it and ease onto that, right? The second thing is stress reduction. Guys, this is so important because stress reduction will help with your hormone levels. It will lower your stress hormones, cortisol, and that will start to bring down inflammation in the body. So if you're not doing some type of meditation or breath work, Tai Chi or yoga, those are the big ones that I think of. It's imperative that you put this, if you're having memory problems, that you put these into your day somehow. You may need to get up a little earlier if you're working a full day, right? So adding that meditation or some kind of stress reduction with breathing throughout the day. Every time you do a few slow breaths, you activate your parasympathetic rest and digest, and you will end up with a lower blood pressure at the end of the day if you do regular moments of breath throughout your day. So we have the nutrition piece, we've got the stress piece, lowering stress. Then we want to start to exercise our brain. I know you're like, oh, I'm exercising my brain all the time. I'm working. You really need to do intensive, focused brain training. And there is, at this point in time, there are some good studies, not a lot of them, but there are good studies showing decades after the brain training, some improvement in cognition and function. So this one, you guys, if you could do Lumosity, you could do Brain HQ, you can use Elevate. Those are different apps for brain training. You want to do brain training, and when it gets boring, and then it gets boring, you're like, I don't want to do that. Go learn to play an instrument. That's brain training too. Sight singing is brain training. All these things that use multiple parts of your brain at once. So if it's hard to do, it's probably brain training, right? And just to warn you, playing brain games, you always lose. So for those of you who are competitive, it's kind of hard, but you can do it. I know you can do it. And you can change it up. Maybe you do Brain HQ one week, Lumosity the next week, Elevate. What's important, do cool math games, that you keep doing the brain training. Okay. So we're training our brain. That's one important part of it. And we're training our body, because increasing your brain power, increasing your muscles, increases your brain power. All right. So it's very important that you have that people who want to keep their brain long term, they're doing exercise. Absolutely have to do exercise, and you have to step it up. So if you're walking a couple miles, yeah, that's great for you. But if you're trying to reverse memory loss, that is inadequate. I'm sorry, it's inadequate. You're going to have to do more, and you're going to have to do it regularly, and you're going to have to embrace the fact that every little bit of extra muscle that you put on, just imagine you're putting on some brain too. So we've got nutrition, stress reduction, exercise for the brain, exercise for the body. Next, let's talk about sleep. Guys, sleeping is when your brain cleans out. And so sleeping is absolutely essential to have an optimal brain health. And so that's the next piece of it is taking a sleep course. If you're in my Energy for Life membership, where any of you guys are using the phototherapy patches, I have a whole course on how to do the ReCode protocol that's free if you're using the phototherapy patches. And that you can come, there's a month-long sleep course also, there, access to me. If you're interested in trying to do this without going to spend how much money you'll spend to go to a ReCode doctor, y'all look that up. You can just try some stem cell activating patches and I can help you with it, right? So that's an option for you. So sleep, and you could take my sleep course. That's a very important. The next one is detoxification. I don't think they really even taught me that word in medical school. That's embarrassing, but I don't think they did. Um, they only taught me 2 hours on nutrition, but that was a long time ago. I'm sure you guys who are in medical school now that they're now teaching nutrition, right? Because it's so important. Yeah, I hope. Okay. Anyway, detoxification is basically making sure all of the pathways where you get toxins out of your body are out and that you're putting in clean stuff, right? Clean air, clean water, clean food, preferably organic if possible without processed foods. And we also want to watch out for the dirty dozen in terms of conventionally grown food that are a part of the dirty dozen. You can look that up on Google. What's in the dirty dozen? Things you don't want to eat conventionally grown because there's so much pesticides. And guys, the pesticides is if you eat those things, it damages your microbiome. Okay, so that is basically why it's a problem. And also, the non-GMO crops also can have a lot of pesticides. In fact, I mean it's just important to realize those non-GMO crops will have a lot of pesticide residue on them. So you got to be careful. I wouldn't even eat non-GMO. I would only eat organic as long as it's or the Clean 15. So there's Clean 15, Dirty Dozen. And those both are from the Environmental Working Group. Clean 15 are conventionally grown fruits and vegetables that are okay to eat conventionally grown because the pesticide residue is not too high. All right. So, and then finally, if you read the book, you're going to be like, golly, he sure suggests a bunch of supplements. It's true, he does. And these are to try and meet all of the needs. When I was saying, oh, if we were going to devise a single drug, that would have to do all these different things. But I'm going to let you get the book to see the supplements he recommends. Many are vitamins, some are adaptogens, some are neurotrophic, that like mushrooms, bacopa, that can help with the growth of baby neurons. So guys, you want to grow your baby neurons. You've got baby neurons even if you're old. And when I was in medical school, they said, you don't have no baby neurons. And I believed them. Now I know that was a big old untruth. When they warned us, they said, 30%, and they might even said higher, 30% of what we're teaching you is not right. The problem with physicians who think that everything they learned in medical school is still true, that is a problem, right? Because we must keep learning and growing. We must use our resources. And now all you folks out there who are caring for people, there are many ways that you can quickly find the most up-to-date research on the things you're treating. So we should never be stuck back in the 1990s with our information for people. Okay. So, all right. So that's my bedtime story, the end of Alzheimer's. I hope that was helpful for you. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to hear some more. Reach out to me if you're interested in learning to do this without a huge outlay of physician costs, because there's ways. As I mentioned it, my Energy for Life membership that also comes with it. Well, it is the perk that goes along with the stem cell activating phototherapy patches that it changed my life also 180 degrees after I started using those. You can reach out to me, clinic at feelgoodfunctionalmed.com, or leave a comment below. But if you really want to reach me, the email is a better way to go. And I do hope you have a great, great night, and love to you all. May you have an evening of peace, joy, and connection. All right, guys, take care. See you later.